That's just it. Everything's okay if it's to stop the terrorists. How long will the war on terror go on? When will any of this ever stop? On 9/11, we all watched the buildings come down, and we watched it again and again. The constant repeating of that footage amplified our trauma and our fear. After the millionth time watching it, each of our nerves felt like it was being exposed and being gnawed on by hungry badgers. That fear reverberated through our culture, and that pain we felt was from the post 9/11 world being born. I think we may have overreacted a bit. Just hear me out. The 9/11 attacks killed 2,996 people. That's horrible. But in 2004, 250,000 people died in a tsunami. Another 16,000 died in another one in 2011. Now bear with me. Recently, I was at the airport. I was in the naked scanner where I realized something was wrong. I wouldn't go through this hassle to ward off the tiny threat of a tsunami. You know, like if they found that God wouldn't send giant tidal waves if you waved your dick at it. But damn it, to stop the terrorists, we'll put up with it. And remember those numbers. 3,000 on 9/11 and 250,000 from the tsunami. But this is the post 9/11 world, not the post tsunami world. The point is, the terrorist won. Please don't stone me yet. Put your rocks down and listen. A guy can go on a kill crazy rampage in a school and shoot up classrooms full of children, and the world will mourn, but nothing will change. Our daily lives are completely unaffected. There's some speeches, some debating, but nothing actually happens. Life goes on. But if some fucktard goes to Wally World and spends $100 and builds a crude bomb that kills 3 people in the name of jihad while cameras are rolling, an entire city goes on lockdown, and police, dressed like the fucking military, going door to door with assault weapons. After that event, the news was full of stories about pressure cooker bombs. Well, some schmo typed in pressure cooker bomb in his Google search, and the cops showed up. You can't be too careful in the post 9/11 world, because absolutely every damn thing has to do with avoiding terrorism. And it didn't take long for people to start taking advantage of that. Soon after 9/11, anti-drug campaigns began saying that buying drugs supported terrorists. Later, building a Muslim community center near Ground Zero was terrorism. Politicians called labor unions terrorists. The Occupy movement were terrorists. A guy leaking secret government files? Terrorist! Evil corporations who mistreat their employees are terrorists. Republicans call Obamacare terrorism. After more than a decade of living in the post 9/11 world, we've forgotten what real terrorism is. Here's a test. Let's talk about Monsanto. Many of you are immediately like, yeah, they're terrorists. They do all sorts of evil shit. But if I say Apple, you get a warm, fuzzy feeling thinking about your iPhone. But the place where that iPhone was built has suicide nets all around it to stop the workers from killing themselves because the working conditions are so poor. But we like Apple and hate Monsanto, so Monsanto are terrorists. But neither one are jihadists blowing people up. Why have we had to expand the meaning of that word? Because the old meaning of extremist killing large numbers of innocent people kind of stopped happening. Terrorism in America since 9/11 has actually just been some bullshit, small-scale attempts. Usually the fucking idiots were more likely to blow bits of themselves off or set their dicks on fire than to kill anyone else. Reality is not like the movies. The bad guys just can't buy large amounts of explosives and no one notice. Law enforcement has done an excellent job of keeping an eye on all that stuff. Also, pulling off an effective attack takes money, skill, intelligence, discipline, and training. Most terrorists are poor, uneducated, and stupid. They aren't the Joker. For the most part, they aren't Osama bin Laden, and they sure as hell aren't Hitler. That brings me to my next point. I want you to think about Hitler and Nazi Germany. Has there ever been such a clear-cut evil empire in recent history? World War II, at least in popular memory, was a great war with a clearly evil enemy in Hitler who was trying to take over the world and committing genocide on an industrial scale. And some very clear-cut good guys in the Allies, like Roosevelt, Churchill, and Stalin. Okay, so maybe it was really more nuanced than we like to remember it. But when it was over, good triumphed over evil, and the troops came home to ticker tape parades. Now I ask you, did you go to the ticker tape parade when the troops came home from Iraq? Do you even remember when the troops came home at all? When was the last time you even heard any news about the war in Afghanistan? We killed bin Laden, but it wasn't like when Hitler died and the war ended. Al-Qaeda just stumbles right along, moving into new places Americans can't find on a map, after driving them out of other places Americans can't find on a map. The days of the glorious wars of good versus evil are over, and they've been replaced with conflict after conflict that lasts forever, but leaves no mark on us. Except, of course, for the veterans who have to suffer through it all. See, we are just in a constant state of war now. There's no shift from peacetime to wartime and then back. Each war just overlaps with the next. So how are we supposed to get all star-spangly and patriotic over it? Well, would you really want to anymore? Patriotism got weird around here. The pickup truck and gun rack crowd hijacked that word from the rest of us. Most of the organizations with the word patriot in the name are not groups I want to associate with, especially since they are more concerned with stopping Obamacare than anything else. So here we are, in the rotten year of our Lord, 2014. We stand in scanners where strangers look at our dick before we get on a plane, and we're okay with it. What the hell is that? We are Americans. We are fiercely private, violently anti-government, and famously prudish, and we are okay with strangers looking at us naked? We are okay with the government spending $2 billion on a gargantuan 1.5 million square foot mass of supercomputers for the sole purpose of monitoring absolutely every American's email and phone calls. How did we let this happen? Our will was drained, one terror threat after another, and it was replaced by fear. We expect all communications to be wireless now. It's all done with cell phones or the internet. Everything from banking to shopping for our electronic sexual devices is all done online now. And only an idiot would expect any of it to be secure. Now why is that? Because two things evolve together. The 24-hour dependence on the internet and wall-to-wall worry about terrorism. We have just accepted it as the natural progression of society. Everything we do is monitored for our safety. We can't imagine it any other way. We see our postmodern world as made of glass, and transparency is a virtue. We are all on display all the time and have embraced it. We've been told it's necessary in the post-9/11 world, and that's the end of the discussion. We just accept that typing a weird search into Google might get you a visit from the police, or a cruel joke on Facebook might get you fired, or that saying certain things might get you on a no-fly list, and every conversation might be recorded with a pair of Google glasses. So over time, you make mental notes to yourself not to say anything too weird, or to make crude jokes, or think too far outside the box. We'll all learn to tame our crazy, irrational, irresponsible, and mad part of the brain. That same madness, which has also incidentally resulted in all creativity throughout history. Sure, that conversational tweet won't get you sent to a gulag in the frozen Alaskan wastes. You may only have to spend a day being interrogated and have your computer and cell phone seized. Just a small reminder to watch what you say, what you think, at all times. They don't have to throw you in prison. They just have to harass you enough that you'll remember next time. And that fire inside us will glow just a little dimmer. And we'll shrug and say, what can we do? It is, after all, a post 9/11 world. But I want to remind you that it will still be post 9/11 a century from now. That's how time works. So I ask you, how long will we let this last?